Diversity, equity, and inclusion are words that were considered goal-worthy and critical to a community. This lawmaking session, though, those three words headline higher education programs now in the crosshairs of the governor and supporting lawmakers who consider what they call DEI political indoctrination, divisive, and discriminatory.
Of course you want diversity. You think like diversity of viewpoints, right? We want to have robust debate, inclusion, making sure that people from different walks of life are able to participate. But I think in reality, what it's been is anything but those things. I think it's been used in the administrative apparatus of universities to try to impose not diversity of thought, but to try to impose uniformity of thought. And instead of inclusion, the people that dissent from this orthodoxy are actually excluded and marginalized.
That was the governor at his roundtable last month, the same day the House took up legislation targeting DEI funding, departments, and curriculum in the state's public universities. Late Friday night, faculty and students from the University of Miami, a private institution, posted a letter with almost 1,000 signatures opposing what is House Bill 999. Scott Evans is faculty member in the School of Education and Development, and Martha Schoolman is a faculty member in the English Department of Florida International University, South Florida's preeminent state public university, very much affected by these bills. Good afternoon to you both, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So, Scott, let me talk a little bit about this letter by so many faculty and students at UM. Unaffected really by what might be a new law coming down the pike. Why?
Well, primarily, we want to stand in solidarity with our public colleagues and students. Many of us at University of Miami work directly with colleagues. For example, I have research grants and projects in partnership with folks from University of Central Florida, FIU. And so we feel like we need to use our voice as best we can to support folks, even though we may not be, as you said, directly affected, although I do think there are some risks at hand.
Martha Schoolman, so glad that you are joining us because, truthfully, a lot of public educators that we've been inviting for the past few weeks declined our invitation, including the vice chair of the Board of Trustees at FIU, which we're going to hear from in just a moment. Why did diversity, equity, and inclusion become so negative?
Well, I'd like to just back up a little bit and talk about the bill that's under consideration, which is called HB 999, and that was also the framing of the faculty letter in support of us. Because that bill is aiming to radically reorganize the state universities in a way that undermines two of the main pillars of higher education, I would say. One is academic freedom, and the other one is peer review. And those two things are really key to what we do in a university. Academic freedom means students and faculty are free to pursue ideas and discuss them freely. And HB 999 actually takes certain topics off the table for free discussion and attempts to cancel certain majors that students are currently studying right now. And the other one is peer review, which is the idea that universities are so diverse, we have so many faculty members, we have so many fields of expertise that we need to be evaluated by our own peers, people who actually understand our research, and that goes for our teaching and for our research for things like tenure evaluations.
Yeah, and
HB 999 means to hand that over to political appointees.
Yes, and so we will discuss that. We will discuss that in a little bit of detail as well. But I want to, because we have no one from the other side here, I want to make sure that is important in this program for that to be discussed and put out there. And what proponents of this bill would say, to your point about freedom in education, is that DEI started out all well-intentioned, and these are their words that I have read and spoken to them about, but has gone, well, what the governor said, gone off the rails because it actually prevents freedom and prevents diversity in a free way, putting thumbs on the scale. And so, Scott Evans, what would be your reaction to that?
Well, and thanks to Martha for kind of highlighting the elements of the bill and the attacks on academic freedom and peer review. Academic freedom and peer review actually help kind of make sure that what we're delivering, what we're teaching, what we're talking about in higher ed is subject to scrutiny. That's part of the academic freedom process and shared governance, so that we have the ability to speak back to content or issues that may be challenging in some ways, and I think that's a good thing. The conditions are already in place in higher ed institutions to kind of check and balance things already. We don't need the political interference.
So with the word political in mind, I want to play at the round table that we talked about in this toss. The governor invited several people to make his case. It was his production, his staging, his topics, his guests. And one of the guests was the vice chair of FIU Board of Trustees, Roger Tovar. And he was there at the invitation of the governor. And the governor posed an interesting question. And I want you to listen to the question and answer, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
I mean, there's the spending issue, but then there's also the issue of using the machinery of the university to promote basically left-wing political activism.
Governor, that's not been the experience that I've encountered at FIU, but anything that is mentioned to us is something that we want to look into and understand. And if we have that type of activity going on, we need to explore it.
Martha Schoolman, clearly the vice chair is walking a very fine line in the political world for a public university that accepts and needs state funding. What do you make of his response?
I mean, it's interesting in a few ways, right? Because, I mean, the boards of trustees are political appointees. And so one of the interesting things, and Governor DeSantis is known for, his fairly harsh treatment of people who disagree with him. So he can't disagree with DeSantis especially strongly. But I think there are a couple things there. One is that the DEI, or the sort of current framing of DEI was only ordered by the big board of governors, so not the FIU Board of Trustees, but the State University System Board of Governors in 2020. And so they're treating it like it's some monster that's gotten out of hand, where they just established these programs like a year ago, in the middle of the pandemic. So it's a little bit strange that it was a state mandate that's suddenly been suddenly deemed politically toxic. So I think it's just kind of short-term political thinking more than some kind of crisis that's actually happening in the university. Because if those of you who are familiar with FIU, and I believe you're a graduate, Glenna, the FIU is already very diverse. It has students from all walks of life, different ages, different interests. And so diversity is the kind of founding principle of FIU, and there have been programs for all of our 50 years to help students starting at the university from different places to feel included, to be part of the community. And so I think this current attack on diversity, equity, inclusion, three nice words, are more of a kind of just current political positioning than any kind of response to something that's really happening, or something that's really negative in our institutions.
So let me take a quick break. We'll be gone for 2 minutes. When we come back, I want to talk about that faculty tenure, if you would. Stay tuned. We are back with Martha Schoolman from FIU, Scott Evans from public school, a private school, both in opposition to House Bill 999, diversity, equity, and inclusion rules. Scott Evans, part of this bill that we were talking about, allows the schools, universities, Board of Trustees, public schools, to request reviews of the tenure of professors and faculty. How does that change? Can they not already, or is tenure on the table here?
It's most certainly on the table. And I think there, like I said before, there are already systems in place for review of the performance and the products of faculty in higher education institutions. This removes the peer review element that Martha was talking about before and places that control. And people just don't have the expertise, frankly, to be weighing in on these matters. And tenure, as a system, protects academic freedom. It's what affords faculty the ability to speak freely, to have tenure and to be able to speak freely, but also those without tenure should be afforded academic freedom as well.
So Martha Schoolman, we know what is happening at New College in Sarasota. Headlines for anyone that that is not aware: the governor and state lawmakers literally took it over and replaced the administration. Also gave it a lot of money, and is apparently reworking this liberal arts college into a more conservative college. So watching that happen, the governor, lawmakers, they have the power to do that. Voters gave them that power to do that. What does that tell you? Does that forecast anything to you about your public university?
Well, I mean, it does appear that HB 999 is trying to lay the groundwork to do that within a university. I mean, I think the reason they started with New College is that it's very small, right? So you can make big changes with a couple of personnel alterations, and FIU is a much larger institution. But I think it does forecast what they want to be able to do, because as I pointed out, Board of Trustees members are political appointees. And the idea of tenure, and this is in our union collective bargaining agreement, and if you look up the definition of academic freedom anywhere, it will tell you this, that you should be able to do your job without fear of political reprisal. And that is we're in an atmosphere now of political reprisal. That's why a lot of my colleagues are worried about talking publicly about this. That's why the Board of Trustees member that you quoted is so tentative about expressing an opinion. And I think the people of Miami, the people of South Florida are not going to be happy with the results if we have a university where suddenly the protections of tenure and the rights of free inquiry are suddenly suspended and kind of or chilled by this kind of fear. I think we're already starting to see professors, who feel like they have to change what they teach or change the titles of their courses. And I think that's not what our parents want. That's certainly not what the students want. And I think it's not going to help FIU in the long run, because FIU, like all of the Florida public schools, have been leaping up the rankings lately. We've been doing really well. And I'm not really sure what the motivation is to kind of throw that all away on this experiment of politicizing all of our work.
Scott Evans, in the 30 seconds we have left, is the administration of University of Miami taking a position?
I can't speak for the administration. All I know,
have you spoke to anyone? Have they talked to you about that? We
have, yeah. And I'm not willing to talk about how they feel about it right here on the camera. I can tell you I'm here representing the American Association of University Professor chapter at the University of Miami, and speaking as a faculty member myself. And the 1,000 or so folks who signed the letter were concerned and standing together with our public colleagues.
Scott Evans, Martha Schoolman, very much appreciate that you felt good enough to come and speak publicly about all this, and I hope you'll keep in touch with us.
Thank you.